Very good morning to all our dear listeners and viewers. Welcome to yet another edition of ACFIM Talks. This day, the 5th of November 2021. My name is Felix Kafuma, the moderator for this show. And before we start, let me invite everybody to join us and be part of this discussion by clicking on our social media platforms, on our YouTube page, on our Facebook page, which will be flashed on the screen for you to be able to follow, and on our Twitter handle. You also have to like our YouTube page so that you can keep getting the notifications and you don't miss to be part of this great show. Once again, you are most welcome, and today I have a two-male panel, unfortunately, but the topic that is being discussed is of very big significance and very interesting. We are looking at the nexus between money and unopposed elective politics. Both these individuals that I'll be introducing in a short while have participated in the study, which partly informs the genesis of this discussion. And without much ado, let me first introduce our panelists. I hope they are on set. Before I can provide the context and the background. Yes, we have our panelists on set. You are most welcome. Let me start with Henry Muguzi, who is already here with us. Henry, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Felix. Pleasure for me to be here.
Yes, it's great always to have you on set. Henry is a researcher and analyst on the subject of political finance and electoral integrity in Africa. He is also a civil society leader and an anti-corruption activist. He has observed over 28 elections in the various countries in Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, and he is a founding member of the African Election Observers Network, a pan-African coordinating platform for enhancing democracy as a viable system on governance in Africa. So the other panelist we have is Pius. We hear you, Pius. You're most welcome. Pius, can you hear me? Yes, Pius, if you can hear me, I'll request then you unmute your microphone so that
yes,
you can
good morning, Felix. I can hear you, but the line is kind of breaking.
Oh, sorry. I think it's your end. Pius Tweheyo is a lawyer and a politician. He's also a political researcher over the last 10 years and has two major publications. We will at some point talk about the publications. As a lawyer, he has participated in two major political cases, which one was the case to do with the age limit and the other on the judicial review petition on the powers of the speaker. In 2017, Tweheyo is also passionate about civil and political rights. Something I should also mention about these two gallant gentlemen, that they have been part of the research that ACFIM conducted that was mainly, it's yet to be launched though, but that research mainly is that golden flagship report that everybody is waiting for, that tries to put a figure on how much was spent in the just concluded 2021 elections. And like I said earlier, what we are discussing partly forms the sections in that study report that will be launched at some point in time. Let me provide some bit of a very interesting context to this discussion. For those who are just joining us and wondering, you are all aware that in 2021, Uganda went to the polls, and in the process, there have been very interesting statistics that I feel should be shared to inform the discussion. One, that there were 11 candidates who went through unopposed for member of parliament position, and then there were also 7 unopposed district chairperson that also went through unopposed, but Also, it's worth observing that in 2016, that number was much less. I think in 2016, we had 9 parliamentary candidates who sailed through unopposed. In 2021, this number shoots up to a total of 18 unopposed candidates, 11 MP, 7 district chairpersons. And all of them were flag bearers of the NRM, the party in power. NRM is National Resistance Movement. And, but also what is important to note here is that the number grew from 6 at the point of nominations to 11 at the point of casting the ballot. So an additional, if my mathematics is right, an additional 11. No, yes, an additional 11 candidates along the way dropped out of the contest. Let me also share some of the names, and they are names of significant interest. The list. Let me start with the list that has unopposed MPs that went through. We have Anita Among, who is the deputy. Actually, yeah, she's the deputy. She deputizes the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among. She sailed unopposed as the district woman MP for Bukedia. We also have Honorable Matia Kasaija, who is the current finance minister, also sailed through unopposed and for Buyanja County. But there are also some other interesting names. In there we have Frank Tumwebaze, Chibale East. He's also a minister, cabinet minister. We also have other honorable MPs like Honorable Hilary Lokwang of E County, Pius Wakabi of Bugaya County. We have Honorable Javira Semwang of Buyamba County, Rakai. We have Honorable Enoch Nyongwe of Nakaseke North. We have Honorable Emily Kugonza of Buyanja East, Chibali, and also again under Chibali County, we have Honorable Cuthbert Abigaba. The list is quite long. We have 11 candidates there who sailed through unopposed. And also under the district local governments, we have 7 of them that sailed through unopposed. And among the 7 that sailed through unopposed, all of them are district chairpersons, all of them are male. And let's mention that. So there is no woman that sailed through unopposed. So we'll also come back to that. So the big question that is in the room was this position of being unopposed genuinely procured through an electoral process or procured using finances, and this sets us rolling. And my first question, since my good colleague is not yet in, I think we've lost bias a bit. Let me now start with Henry, who is on set. Pius, if you log in, please mute. We are getting background information. But let me start with Henry. Henry, you are part of the research team behind the much anticipated study report on campaign spending for 2021 elections, under title How the Bank Not Controlled Voter Consent. And in that report, you present an hypothesis that being unopposed as a member of parliament candidate was rather purchased than merited. Being part of the team that interrogated this assertion, what are your findings so far? Because let's help the public out there that are following us to have this grounding. What are the findings so far in regard to this hypothesis?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Felix. And of course, I'm quite happy. My name is Henry Mguzi. Quite happy to be on set with my colleague, good friend, Pius Boteyo, with whom who worked very seriously on this particular topic and went around the country trying to establish how this was achieved. But like I said, we had at the level of member of parliament, we had 11 candidates that went through unopposed, and it is not by surprise that all of these are NRM flag bearers. Now, in a country where you live with a dominant party, because Uganda has a dominant party system where the party in power is pretty much everywhere. It is quite ubiquitous, and it is the one that has the that is well resourced and so on. But also a party that has a very strong financial muscle, but also in a country where electoral politics is so commercialized. So when you are confronted by a situation where certain candidates, among them high-profile ministers, are standing and running unopposed, you cannot help but question what is the thing behind the thing. What is why is it that what explains why these candidates, particular candidates, remain unopposed? Now, you'll not see that when we went out and checked, we discovered that most of these had actually used money to buy and fend off political competition. Actually, one of them, and to be exact, even I think it was Javira Semwanga of Buyamba County in Rakai. After he was declared unopposed, journalists approached him and asked, how did you achieve this? And he said, oh, this was always coming because I used a lot of money to ensure that nobody comes through to challenge me, and that because of the money I spent, it was always going to be inevitable that I would be unopposed. So the general finding is that money was a factor that explains why many of these candidates are stood unopposed. It's also the factor to explain why many of them are candidates of the NRM party, because as we all know, this is the party that is very well resourced. Money, they conduct their business in a way and manner that money is not a problem at all. But also, if you look at the local government candidates that went through unopposed, and many of these were district chairpersons, again, they are NRM flag bearers. At worst, they are NRM leaning. It therefore means that it is not by coincidence that all the candidates that stand unopposed belong to one party, and that it is the party that we know that has a very strong political muscle. But the bigger question is, what does this mean for democracy? If you have a democracy where people sail through unopposed, what does this mean to the ordinary person? Can a political leader who has sailed through unopposed be as accountable and responsive to the needs of the constituents as the other one who went through competition? What does lack of competition mean for democracy? And do we not know that one of the foundational tenets of democracy is that there must be competition? And therefore, when you see that money, these individuals who have money are using it to stifle political competition, ensure that political competitors are kept at bay so that they are the only ones that sail through, you can't help but worry the trajectory that Uganda's democracy is taking.
Interesting. There are about three things I want to pick up on, and I hope if I can have Pius here. Pius, let me start with you. You are the foot soldier. You visited some of these districts where some candidates were able to secure the unopposed ticket. From your experience, how significant was money a factor to buy off this? And I want us to discuss this. For example, when you look at the case of Honorable Matia Kasaija, the Minister of Finance, and Paul Chalimpa, who was the main challenger to the minister, not just in 2021, but also in 2016. Later on, we see some bit of transaction, compensatory transaction, where Paul Chalimpa is now appointed the Deputy Executive Director of the Uganda Investment Authority, an agency directly under the supervision of the minister. What do you read into this, and what does this mean when it comes in the whole scheme of things, when it comes to competition during electoral politics?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Felix. I hope you can hear me very well. It's a pleasure to be with you discussing this topic. And like Henry has highlighted, that electoral democracy is one of the tenets of democracy is elections. And it is very important to note that unopposed candidates and people being unopposed in Uganda has kind of become a norm these days. And this has been due to two or three major factors. One, there is money, the money factor, which is very key. There is intimidation of candidates and voters, and sometimes candidates get scared to, would-be candidates get scared to compete. And thirdly, there is the involvement of security forces in the elections. And this has terribly affected the democratic principles as regards to elections. The instance of competition in elections is mainly voter turnout, having improvement in quality of representation, and when somebody competes, they are easily accountable to the electorate. Therefore, I will first take you through this stage. You look at 2016, NRM had about 24 candidates that were unopposed. 9 of them were MPs, and the rest were LC, 5 candidates who were unopposed, and they were declared winners of the election without going into the hassles of the rigors of competitive elections. You look at 2016, you have 2021, you have approximately 9 candidates that were declared unopposed for the elections. So when you look at how these people secured these positions, it's purely about money. You look at the position like in Bukedea, where the current deputy speaker is. Started, I went to these areas, and precisely in Bukedea, people would not get other than the current deputy speaker, that is Honorable Betty Amongi. Now, what happened in that area was the candidate that was going to contest against her could not contest for only one reason, that the people that had endorsed her withdrew their endorsement because they were paid some money. You look at places like Henry has said, in Rakai, the person that competed with the others in the NRM primaries and won the NRM ticket and was declared unopposed, that is Honorable Javira. He went through unopposed simply because he spent a lot of money. People on the ground were saying that this person was spending a lot of money. He would finance each and every function in the village. He would finance each and every youth activity, that is sports, get-togethers, and everything. Then you look at candidates like the current Deputy Attorney General, the area where he was contesting, he gave the people an ambulance. he gave the people, actually he had started up a radio, but immediately after the election, the radio stopped working. So that tells you that the intention was not about serving or informing the people about what is happening, but it was precisely about how to secure an election. And therefore, like Henry has said, if you have candidates, the chances are high that the quality of services that you're going to get from the a lot of money, not to influence, and thus a would hardly find any any MP that went through unopposed. Wakabi is one of the candidates that has gone. You would hardly hear him say anything on the floor of parliament for the last 2 terms. So therefore, unopposed candidates really don't have much to, they don't have much accountability to the electorate. Where they have accountability to is the source of their money, the source of their wealth. So these guys, sorry for using that word, but mostly these MPs that go through unopposed have to collect that money that they have used in the election, and in the way they have secured this uh, unopposed position, they have to make sure that they recover that investment. And therefore, I think, and I strongly believe, I'm fortified in my position, that if we want to have a very vibrant parliament, very vibrant local councils, we need to have competitive elections so that we can be able to hold these elected leaders accountable for the services they deliver, for the work they do, and for everything they do in their capacity as elected leaders.
Wow, wow. Thank you very much. That's a very, very interesting banter there. Henry, let me
Yes,
bring you
Felix,
in
I
here
hope I
on the
have
issue of.
ably answered your question. And
Yes, you have, and you actually usher me into another line of questioning I would want to throw at Henry here. When you look at the region, the regions where most of the unopposed candidates were able to secure the cult status of unopposed, you would say out of the 18 unopposed parliamentary and district chairpersons, 8 are from the western region. That is Rubirizi, Kiruhura, Ibanda, Chegegwa, Kamwenge, Chibala, and Hoima, and the remaining 10 shared across Eastern, Central, and West Nile. What explains these regional perspectives?
Just a second. Yeah, I think when it comes to Ughanda's politics and when you are trying to dissect what informs voting decisions, you cannot help but put an analytical eye on the regional dynamics. It is an open secret that the Western region is home to the most moneyed political candidates. But also, it is also home to the candidates that have ties and ties. They have strong ties to campaign financiers, but also they have ties to other sources of campaign money. And therefore, when it comes to spending as if money is not a problem, the West has proved, as we observed in 2021, like it were in 2016, is a hotbed for campaign spending. I want to say that I think also you see one of the drivers for candidates to stand and go through unopposed is to demonstrate to the powers that be, in this case to the General Yoweri Museveni, that they are powerful. Because the thinking is that once you demonstrate that you are powerful and you can do that by going through unopposed, then you send a message to the appointing authority that, look here, I am a power to reckon with. And therefore, that should be enough to inform the decisions of the president when he's choosing who should become a minister. And therefore, because of that, the people from the West would then invest more, because the chances of then landing a cabinet post are more than it would have been if one was to come from the northern region or central region. But that said, I think Pius hit the nail on the head when he talked about issues of service. These members of parliament who we live to sail through unopposed, what kind of services are they going to offer? But are they going to be accountable to us? If someone has gone through unopposed, you as the voter, where will you get the locus to hold these fellows accountable? Okay, and when you look at what the political analysts from different electoral jurisdictions have argued, there's an argument that political competition produces better politicians, and also political competition enables the voters to pay more attention to what happens in the electoral political arena. And therefore, if you face a situation where the leader goes through unopposed, as we saw, and as we are seeing already now, you get to see that the representation of the citizens is not going to be at the forefront, at the top of the list of preferences, and therefore, because democracy has come to mean many things to different people in Uganda. Some people look at democracy as electoral democracy now, or elections now, as an avenue for them to access platforms where they can amass more wealth. And therefore, why not just spend this money and fend off competition, get these voters to vote for me, give them whatever I can to confuse them, and then I go to access the platforms, the political platforms that would then be a basis for me to access wealth. And so these things, all said and done, are things that we need to condemn, because they are what you can call a subtle way of killing democracy, because you cannot have democracy without competition. You would recall, before we went into multi-party democracy, we used to have one-party democracy. And during that one-party democracy, we used to conduct elections, and the president would always argue so eloquently that the elections we are conducting under a movement system were enough. But of course, he had to be told and brought to order that you cannot have elections without political parties. And therefore, the essence of opening for political parties was to allow political competition. So competition is a key tenet of any democratic election, is a key tenet in the management of society. Even when I go out there to buy papaya or pineapples, I would want, if I found only one and have no choices to choose from, I wouldn't feel as satisfied as it would if I found a variety from which I pick one which I think would serve me best. And therefore, competition is something that is critical for democracy, but it is something that these men and women are trying to kill by using money to defeat the principles of democracy.
Yeah. Wow, thank you, Henry. Pius, I don't know whether I think I've lost Pius now. I think when Pius comes back, I'll get back to him, because there's something I want to follow up through with that
Yes.
submission Henry has just made. Yeah, Pius, you here?
I can.
Yes. Wait a
I
minute.
can hear you very well, Felix.
There's a question here in line with what Henry is saying, because we've seen NRM manage their internal processes and sometimes ring-fence certain positions and have probably even single flag bearers. It's just that's an internal process where you now have one flag bearer who will probably compete with other political party flag bearers in the open race. So, but now, when it comes to the open race, and this speaks to opposition, why is it, how can we have a situation where in the entire constituency, there is only one candidate, unopposed, in a multi-party dispensation where you have other political parties? I think we had more than 10 political parties participate in the 2021 elections.
Felix,
Where
I
are
didn't
the
hear your
others?
question very well.
My question is, where are the other political parties for to have a situation where you only have one unopposed candidate in a specific constituency? What does this speak to the multi-party politics of Uganda, but also to our opposition political parties in terms of presenting alternative choices for the electorate to choose from? Why do we have a situation of having unopposed candidates in the constituency as if we are not in a multi-party dispensation?
Yes, Felix, to answer that, I will first highlight from what Henry has said. The most unfortunate thing that has befallen us is one, holding elections as a periodic thing. We hold elections just every after 5 years for purposes of fulfilling the constitutional obligations. But we do not hold elections for purposes of accountability, service, or representation of the people. We hold elections to fulfill the mandate of the Constitution. The framers of the Constitution were alive to the fact that the people need leaders that are accountable, need leaders that are ready to deliver services, and need leaders that are ready to represent them. Unfortunately, we have fallen short of that. To answer what you've said, in 2016, out of the 353 elected positions of members of parliament, the opposition uh, had only had had only 290, had only 290, and the rest were for the NRM. The reason as to why this is happening is not alien to what we have been saying. Most especially, this happens because of the forces of money that have come into politics. And secondly, blaming it on the opposition would be too harsh on them. As we can recall, during the 2007, during the 2021 elections, before the presidential candidate is required to consult the constituents that are supposed to vote him. His constituency is the whole country. We know what happened to Honorable Chagola Sentamu, Bobby Wine, when he tried to start his consultative meetings during that period of 2019. That is 1 year before the nomination. He was unable to consult, and as we are aware, the current situation would not allow meetings. The president had put Uganda into strict lockdown due to the coronavirus pandemic. However, that's as it may, we would not have had the kind of election that we had even if there was no coronavirus. The problem that we have had is that the current ruling regime thinks that whoever tries to upset it is an agent of provocateur. So what they all do is to attack, maim, beat up everybody that intends to compete against them. Therefore, in such kind of environment, you do not expect a person that has acquired some kind of stability in his life to leave that stability and go into elections where they can be maimed, they can be beaten, they can be embarrassed, and whatever this regime is capable of doing can be done against that kind of a person. That explains one of the reasons as to why you find astute lawyers, astute medics, astute professors who have been around, who have seen everything that has gone wrong about this country, cannot even attempt to contest for any position. To say the least, most of these distinguished professors, distinguished lawyers, distinguished medics, managers cannot even try to contest for MPship. If they cannot even contest for an MP position, you would not expect them to even endorse any election. Most of them, I doubt if most of them even vote. The manipulation that has been done against them is evident. Everybody can see that. It is evident. It is out there. Everybody can see. So, that as it may, I would not think that it would be on the opposition's case for them to contest in an election where, one, it is a sham election. We have not, I don't think that we have had any credible election for the last 5 cycles we have gone into elections. Let it be 1996, 2001, 2006, 2011, 2016, and 2021. We have not had a credible election. You do not expect an opposition candidate to sail through this kind of turbulent election. These guys, these MPs that eventually win elections, they go through a lot of challenges. They win against all odds of the state, money, and any other intimidation that comes with it. I can give you a case in point. In 2016, the election that was held in Lira, where a candidate was beaten, roughed up, undressed in the public as a way to embarrass and to show the public that they mean nothing. You come to 2021, MPs, some of them would even hide on their campaign trails. Somebody who has to hide in his campaign trail, you do not expect to have a credible election. You do not expect to have effective representation in such circumstances. Having said that, I would think that the best way to do this is to look at how we can transit from the current state we are in. We give it a 5 years transition, look at how we can do or conduct an election as required under the constitutional provisions. The Constitution requires to have a free, fair election. We have not had any single free and fair election since 1996. I don't think that we can have
Did I lose you along the way, Pius? You were making a very interesting point there about the
any free and fair election in this country, and we have all.
I think I've lost Pius a bit. Henry, do you want to?
Of course. The point he's making is that if you look at all the elections we have had under the new constitution since 1996, there's nothing you can come out and put your finger on and say this was free and fair, because normally the process, you see, elections are not an event. Elections is not what happens on election day. The outcome of elections is determined by how the process is managed. So if you look at the processes of the electoral processes, if you look at how the electoral processes have been managed since 1996 through to 2001, an election which was characterized, which was defined in one word as Chiboko. Remember Kakoza Mutale and his Kalanga action plan. And then you sailed through 2006, which was again violence. And then you come 2011, which was defined in one word as money. And then 2021, which was a combination of both security and money. You see that the processes that deliver the election, that feed into election day, have not been fair at all. And therefore, if the election campaigns have not been fair, if the pre-campaign period has not been fair, is it likely that the outcome, what happens on voting day will be fair? And therefore, whereas observers have been coming around and saying in the very past that the election seemed to have, depicted an expression of the will of the people. For us who are on the ground understand and who see these injustices being meted down on political candidates, especially at the presidential level, with the clear intention of ensuring that that the competition at that level is undermined. We know that the elections have not been free and fair. But of course, now, just to add on what Pius was saying, you ask yourself the reason why is it that all the candidates that stood subscribe are flag bearers of the party in power. The simple answer could be is that it is the party that has been undermining competition for a long time, because who is ensuring that the opposition candidates cannot, those who are aspiring to be candidates at presidential level do not even go to consult. Who is doing this? Who is managing the security apparatus that is undermining and making it very hard for people to consult? So the reason you see that to date we have more opposition candidates in parliament is because the National Unity Platform Party tried to act in a subterranean manner, that they did conceal quite a number of their plans because nobody knew that they had the capacity to field candidates across all the electoral positions in the central region. Nobody expected that at local government level, to be specific, at the district LC5 and the sub-county LC3, that they would go on and field the candidates as they would. So they took everybody by surprise. Now, that is because they acted in a subterranean manner. Now, to date, I can predict almost with the microscopic exactness that in 2021, 2026, all effort possible is going to be done and starting already with what we've seen. My good friend Pius talked about the kidnaps, the battering, that is going to escalate with a view of ensuring that all efforts to kind of grow the party are nipped in the bud, that when that day comes, the competition is not there. The idea is to defeat electoral competition. Thank you.
Wow. Of course, at some point, there's a gentleman who used to joke that we've never left the bus. I think what happened is that we are still in the bus and they have planted a few other smaller cars. Some are lead cars, some are in the side, some are at the back, and all moving in the same direction. And they all have some shades of yellow. But that's a discussion for another day. Now, let's talk about these figures here, because this is what we are known for. And I'll start with him and then I will come to Pius. When it comes to the spending here in terms of spending patterns, and help me understand, is it cheaper to buy off and you incur one expenditure of buying off competition and you don't have to spend in the actual race? And what, in that sense, what do you spend? What kind of cost do you incur to buy off competition vis-a-vis the cost you will incur if you are in an open race? And if we are to talk about the economics of the language of business, what is better, to buy off competition ahead of time with a substantial amount of money, and you don't have to go through stress and rather than to go and compete in a race and outspend, and because we've also proved that you can outspend to the seat. So I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually, because I think we need to go back and do a thorough analysis as to the cost of the two. But I think ultimately it's better for you to buy someone competition off and run unopposed. The reason being that if you did not do that and let competition and live with the competition, there is a level of unpredictability of how much you'll spend. But here you have everything in your hands. Number two, you see, when you're running through campaigns, it does not only, the effect is not only on spending. there is also an effect that is emotive. There's the emotional element to it, and therefore you don't know how the stress that gives you would kind of undermine your life. And if you look at most of the people that have gone through election, and especially so if the competition has been cutthroat, they begin to develop illnesses and ailments they did not have before. So you get to see that stress is what is you would avoid it. But most importantly, in the context of Uganda, if you feel that you need to send a message to the appointing authority that, look, here I am as powerful as it gets. If you're looking for ministerial candidates, here I am. I think you are better off standing unopposed, because when you stand unopposed, it means that there is general consensus within the constituency that you are the only bull in the corral, and therefore, if you don't work with me as the bull in the corral, then I don't know who you will work with. But obviously, it has not paid off for many of them. Many of them came thinking that they will be ministers, and they haven't. We do know, as we were informed by the observers on the ground, that some of them, even during campaign time, they were saying all they needed was to get into parliament, and then the appointments of as minister would be a given. So you get to see that there are more returns for you to stand unopposed. Number one, you shorten, you kind of steer clear of the stress that would eat into your life. Number two, it could be cheaper because you don't know how much you will spend if you went the full length of competition. And number three, you send a message to the appointing authority that, look, I am the Goliath in my region. So if you want to please my people, then better appoint me minister here. And of course, many of them have been appointed a minister. And if you look at a number of the people that stood unopposed, if you look at Honorable Kasaija, I think he was desperate to make sure that he retains his ministerial position, Minister of Finance. If you look at Honorable Anita Among, I think she knew that her political star was going to continue shining. If you look at Honorable Frank Tumwebas, I think he knew that the only way I'm going to defend my wealth and my power is to demonstrate that back home in the region, I am still a power to reckon with. So you see, those are some of the things that come into the picture in terms of benefits accruing from you standing unopposed.
Thank you, Henry. I wish I could bring in here Pius because I need to have a feel of probably what can we put a figure, an average figure on how much one would spend to buy off competition. I know it is it varies from region to region.
We can put a figure, Felix, because if you look at a man like Javira, we do know from our findings that this time around, on average, the people that contested for a member of parliament spent in the upwards of 500 million. So if you are Javira in Rakai, so if you got this candidate who was trying to compete with you, and you presented a sack filled with the 250 million, which is half the cost you would have incurred on if you had gone the full course of campaigns, the guy will take it. You see. So I think in certain constituencies, it is much easier. It is cheaper to buy off competition and avoid going through the hassle of campaigning and the emotional torture that always comes back to haunt you and shorten your stay on earth.
Interesting. Pius, I'll allow you to make some comments on that. But as you make comments on that also, there is this narrative that there are those candidates who present themselves as stiff competition in view of trying to negotiate that they are bought out. So for them, it's business to make money. They don't necessarily intend to run, but they target those desperate candidates and present some form of competition, and then give room to be negotiated out of the race. Did you come across such scenarios in the course, and probably could share, as you also made a comment on my earlier question I had asked?
Yes, to answer what you've last asked, yeah, yes, it's very true. There are very many uh, schemers, I would call them schemers, who want to benefit from trying to threaten that they are going to contest for an election, and they want to be bought out. I found this mostly in this constituency, Chaka South, where the Deputy Attorney General comes from. I I found very many people complaining that the persons that wanted to contest against him only wanted him to buy them out of the race so that they do not suffer the, the current situations of economic hardships that we are facing as a country. However, having said that, I want to point out one key factor in our politics. Opposition candidates, most of the time, thrive on the activities and the hard work of NGOs. Most of the time, opposition candidates posture as they are doing something, yet they thrive on activities of NGOs. I don't want to take away the credit that they go through a lot of challenges, they go through a lot of hard tackles from the government, but most of the time, most of them thrive on the activities of NGOs. When an NGO is trying to publicize or create some awareness, they jump onto the car and they assume responsibility of the activities. And I think that's what has put government and the NGOs in a very bad light. Then, like Henry was saying, the politics of buying out candidates, negotiating with candidates not to contest, and investing a lot of money. You see, I think it was around between 2011 and 2016 when the president was saying that he's the only person that has money in this country and he owns all the money that is in this country. And unfortunately, he was outsmarted by some youths in the eastern region that made him carry a sack of money. It was bizarre for a head of state to carry a sack of money on his head that he's donating money. In those circumstances, you do not expect somebody who is contesting to become an MP not to invest a lot of money because they know that the returns on the investment are enormous. Any business person like Honorable Javila, who is a businessman, who has been doing business for some time, they will look at the return on investment on having an opposite seat. Because you invest once as an NRM flag bearer, when you go through the whatever that kind of election is, terrible as it was, and you secure your ticket as an NRM candidate, you would rather pay off somebody that they do not compete against you. I don't think an MP would lose anything paying somebody 500 million shillings and they contest unopposed. They are going to recover this money in less than 6 months. If they cut a deal to scrap off bail in the constitution, that will come with, because we have seen this happen for several amendments, the age limit amendment and the term limit amendments. What was happening at Mosa courts and how people were dishing out money in 2006, 2005, 2006, how people were getting money at Korolo in 2017 to amend the constitution to allow the president to contest until he feels like he's done or until the good Lord calls on him. Having said that, it's absurd that we have reached this stage. The only way to get out of this, like I have already highlighted, is to push for a transition. I don't know how, because at least Henry must have been a player, how far we have reached with the dialogue. We have to push for a dialogue again. NGOs were doing a very tremendous job on that. Unfortunately, it was hijacked by politicians, unscrupulous politicians that wanted to take the limelight. But I think it would be the most prudent way to do engage, dialogue, and maybe one day, one time, the current regime will sit and think that they can do much better for this country if they allow a transition to happen. I think that is what I can say about the current electoral processes and how people become unopposed in this country. Not forgetting what happened in Zimbabwe, where the brother to the president and the daughter to the former foreign affairs minister, kingpins in politics, had to go bare knuckles, neck to neck, so that they can secure a parliamentary seat. I wouldn't be wrong to say any person would want to enter that parliament so as to survive because of these economic hardships that we are going through as a country.
Thank you. Indeed, politics in Uganda is quite lucrative. Even as low as an LC1 chairperson, you just know that you've earned yourself daily bread. Anyway, we have less than 5 minutes to close this, so I'll give Henry 2 minutes to give the parting shots, but more or less the direction of what can we do, because these numbers keep growing. In 2016, there were 9 legislators that were unopposed. Now the numbers are quite higher. So how do we either mitigate this fast-moving train of procuring the unopposed status?
Oh yeah, thank you very much, Felix. These are going to be my parting shots. Number one, I want to emphasize that a competitive election and all the resulting attention that ensues makes voters more politically engaged. And we need the voters to be politically engaged in their process. They should have a variety, because democracy survives and thrives on varieties from which to pick. Uganda, like many other countries, are struggling to be a state. We have nationalities that we have bundled together into a frame called Uganda. Since independence, there has not been any deliberate effort to make Ugandans feel like Ugandans. I think national dialogue is a place to begin. The question is, it's been demonstrated that the regime is not ready for national dialogue, but I think national dialogue is a place to start from. Try to make sure that we find answers for the questions that have not been answered. Questions such as the Buganda question, questions such as the Northern Uganda question, questions such as the Karamoja question, the West Nile question, and now we are dealing with the Kasese question as well. So answers, national dialogue is the way to go to find answers to some of these unanswered questions. I thank you. It's been a pleasure for me to share my insights on this very auspicious platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Henry. I think I've lost Pius. I wanted Pius also to give us the parting shots. I think Pius is there. Pius, can you give us the parting shots in about under a minute?
Yes, thank you so much, Felix. Thank you, Henry, and thank you, ACFIM, for this opportunity. And I will finally say that I insist that we need a dialogue, we need a transitional process. Ghana has gone through the same. They had a long-time dictator in the late Jerry Rawlings. They went through a transition, and I think I would implore NGOs to push the parliament to enact a transitional act so that we can give a soft landing to any leader that is in power. This will enhance our electoral processes. It will improve electoral competition, and we shall have the varieties, like Henry is saying. That's all I can say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was Pius Oheyo, a lawyer and politician and a researcher. And I also had with me Henry Muguzi, who is also a researcher and analyst on political finance and electoral integrity in Africa. We've been discussing the nexus between money and and unopposed elective positions. I've been Felix Kafuma, moderator. Until next Friday, same time. Bye-bye. Take care.
My people, a cup of coffee, please. There is tea, everything. Snacks are on the way.
Your thanks, but the reason that's why we are here, our people need improve the best services. We at least need an ambulance at every center of the day.
My sub-county is the farthest. We used to depend on the former MP's vehicle, but when he lost his elections, he took away his vehicle.
Of course.
So what does that mean?
Use your budget as a district to procure the ambulances.
Oh, if I could, I would. But unfortunately, government operates differently.
I'm saying, Chairperson, this is very serious and urgent.
Yes, I know. And why are they called local leaders then?
Local government.
You people, who sent you here?
I know, of course. We are concerned citizens who are watching people dying every day.
We've lost our beloved ones just because of poor health services.
Something has to be done.
You are right. Something has to be done, and very fast.
Yes.
That's transport for you. Go back.
But
All your concerns are taken care of. I will handle.
But
Have a
Chairman,
safe journey.
Thank you so much.
but this man seems to undermine our cause as to why we're here.
No, don't misunderstand me. This is just transport. No strings attached.
Chairman, we came here to discuss and find solution to our problems. But it seems you don't want to engage with us. Let's go and mobilize people, and you will see how serious we are.
Good citizens, let us always hold our leaders accountable. Leadership is a service, not a privilege.
Contribute today at www.politicalfinanceafrica.org/donate. Together, we can contribute towards enhancing democracy as a viable system of governance in Uganda. Contact us at acfim@politicalfinanceafrica.org or acfimuganda@gmail.com or www.politicalfinanceafrica.org, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube.